Welcome to another episode of Literary Gladiators, the show where we discuss and debate literature in all of its forms. If it's written work, it's game. Let's meet the panel.
I'm Dan.
Hi, I'm Jesi. I'm Kaila.
And I'm Josh. And I want to welcome Dan and Kaila back to the 12th season of our show.
Yay.
And I also want to thank both of them for doing what they do, because outside of Literary Gladiators, they are essential workers.
I think like medical professionals deserve more.
Yes, I agree with that. You're still an important one, and so is Kaila, because all the animals still need attention when necessary.
Because once we're all gone, they'll be here.
Already done. And Jesi, when you went back to when the dentist's office is opened, they could always rely on you to be there. So.
Oh yeah, always there. Fixing teeth.
But today we're going to be going over a suggestion from Jesi, and my dad is a huge enthusiast, so hopefully he checks us out, as we discuss The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. This is the entryway into Middle-earth, and was originally created as a bedtime story. Tolkien created it as a bedtime story for his kids. So, Jesi, you have a discussion starter?
I do. So there's a lot that goes on in this book that, it's a big adventure for Bilbo Baggins, which is not something that the Hobbits normally do. And he learns a lot on this adventure, not only about the world around him, the people that he, shares the adventure with, but also himself. So what would you guys say is the overall lesson or theme or the best overall lesson or theme of this book? Because I feel like you can take a lot out of it.
Yeah, there is a lot of ways
what
you
would you say is the
at
best one?
I would say the thing is that you may not see it, but you have a higher calling, basically. Because, he really didn't want to go on this adventure. He kind of got just roped into this by, Gandalf and all the other dwarves. He didn't want to go on this adventure. But he realized that once he got on it, he had a role to play. He actually could do what they wanted if he just, pushed himself to do it. So the thing is, that's the one thing I take away from it, that the whole lesson is, you may think that you can't do something, but you don't know unless you try it.
I think that's a really good point, yeah.
I would say, along the vein that Dan has to say, I think the strongest message is to believe in yourself and to believe in those that are around you, that are always there for you. Because his relationship with the dwarves was tested here and there. They went on this adventure for such a long period of time, and they were always there in some way, shape, or form with one another. Even when presented with the temptation, he would not turn away from them, particularly with his interactions with Smog, and when it was time to divvy up the earnings, the gold, the silver.
I think my favorite theme, and this is actually what kind of made me ask it, because I went through, and honestly I have a very similar question for the next one we discuss, because there's so much that comes out of this book, and I think, don't doubt yourself until you try is an excellent theme. The other one I wanted to point out is individuality. Hobbits don't do these things. We don't go out on adventures. We like the simple things in life. We like to do, our own calm meandering throughout life. This is where we stay, this is what we do, and that's it. Whereas I feel like throughout the story, Bilbo Baggins kind of learns who he is and how he's different from everybody else. That's what makes him an individual as opposed to just another hobbit. And I feel like that's another really important lesson that kids can learn. And I didn't know it was supposed to be written as a kid's book, which is something I just learned now. So, but it makes sense because you have these kinds of messages to send to kids about.
I think that as a children's bedtime story, viewing it in that light, it strengthens the work.
Yes.
Also, you notice how it's the Lord of the Rings is very lore heavy. This one didn't have that because I think also the thing is to mention, J.R.R. Tolkien didn't think this was going to be a successful book. And it's still very successful even years after his death.
A lot of work started. Reverend W. Audrey with Thomas the Tank Engine, that started out as a children's bedtime story.
Yeah, now it's memes on the internet.
Yeah. Look how far we've come.
Like my takeaway theme for this kind of plays into both of them, both of your guys's, kind of that even the smallest hobbit, even if you don't think they can make a difference at the end of the day. And I think that, like, Bilbo gets everything done, but he does it by being true to himself and by being exactly who he is. And I think that's a really important takeaway for kids, too. You can do whatever you want to do, but you don't have to change who you are to do it.
I would say my favorite part in the whole book was Gandalf's consistent belief in Bilbo. It was after the Riddles of the Dar.
Which is weird. I saw the movie, but I completely forgot that he was in The Hobbit. Gollum. Yeah. Which
I
Gollum
never
himself
saw
was
The
a Hobbit,
Hobbit,
too,
so-
by the way.
Yes. We learned that in
that.
the Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, he was Schmeagol.
Yeah.
Yes.
The whole idea that the dwarves were about ready to give up on him, and they were questioning Gandalf, which is something you don't do.
No, you do not question Gandalf.
Gandalf,
The wizard.
Gandalf cracks me up. I
He
love
knows
like the
what-
very
yeah.
first conversation they had like together, where he's like, "Oh, good morning." Well, what do you mean by good morning?
Yeah.
And it's like 4 different things. He's like, all of them? Yes. And then like later on, he's like, "Good morning. Talk to you tomorrow." And he's like, "Well, now you just want me to leave." And you're like, "What is happening?"
I liked when he tried to send him away, but he leaves a mark on his door.
Yeah.
It's,
And accidentally invites him to
Yeah.
tea.
Yeah.
him and several dwarves.
Yeah.
Something about the dwarves, aside from Thorin and then Balin, Gimli's father, they weren't very individualistic. They were just, it seemed, they were just created to be a
To fill out the 13.
Actually, I feel
Yeah.
like that kind of helped play into the message of individuality too. So
For Bilbo.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it just kind of, again, here, even if you like take the hobbits out of it, instead of having a group of everybody the same, you have, somebody who stands out to make the difference.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that emphasized my thoughts on the main theme being individuality. I guess is how I'm trying to say it, because they were so similar.
Universal.
I mean, even their
Like, even
names,
some of
their
their
names
names
are like, they all
rhymed.
rhyme.
Yeah.
Like,
In many
got like
cases,
I didn't-
Gopher and Bopher and Oin and Gloin.
Yeah.
All these names are really hard to pronounce, by the way.
But I think when he came to the singular characters like Briorn, the skin changer, I thought Smog was a very interesting villain. Instead of a dragon that just roared and growled, he actually spoke.
Well,
And
Speaking
he was
Dragon is
very-
pretty interesting in itself.
Yeah, and he was a very cunning dragon too.
Oh, yeah, he had, like, what was it, the diamonds, I think, underneath his, like,
Gold.
his...
Yeah, there's
Oh,
something
but
I thought it was diamonds. I could have read that
on the
wrong.
chest plate.
Like, he had, like, didn't he
I
have,
thought it
like,
was just
something
like
to
fancy, like
protect
a
his, like,
Yeah.
plate.
like, to protect his, like, Under Armour?
scale.
I think
Yeah, I
it's just the
was
scales.
Oh, okay.
Oh, really? I just remember he, like, put
'Cause I
something
thought
there to protect it.
Maybe I read it wrong because I picture it was like an armor kind of thing. But if it's just
I think
the
a
scales, I
dragon
guess
is
that's kind of
armor.
armor. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I just
So-
remember hearing
But I
that
don't know,
his,
maybe
his
I'm wrong.
underside was, like, what's exposed, and the thing is, like, he put diamonds there, and the thing is, like, I forget what his name is, but he shot, like, the arrow, and he hit, like, a weak spot and hit him, killed him.
Could be that too. There was a
Yeah.
The
lot
Bard
of
was the one-
fantastical things.
the
in
Bard's
it,
the one
so-
I mean,
Go.
it's a kid's story.
Yeah.
I think
And
that,
it's,
like,
the Bard was an interesting character too, in the way that he was a very stereotypical debonair Rupert Everett kind of Prince Charming,
Yeah.
as in the Shrek Prince Charming reminded me a lot of him, where he
I
had
forgot
an
that.
ego.
the way the book is just like broken down is interesting because now that you know it's a bedtime story, you can see it being like a chronological set of stories because you've got the part where they all meet, then you've got the thing with the trolls, then you've got the thing with the, like, when he finds the ring, then you've got Smaug, then you've got the War of the Five Armies, and it really, like, sections it off, so you can see it being told to, like, a kid at bedtime. Every day's
Yeah.
a new adventure.
Yeah.
You know?
And it also kind of makes sense too with again going back to the beginning in the first like few pages when he talks about like, oh, and Bilbo was a hobbit. Oh wait, you don't know what a hobbit is.
Yeah, let me tell
tell
you.
you. It's just like, oh, clever. Okay, like how he introduces
Very Lemony
it.
Snicket of you.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly what it reminds me of. And again, it's a nice kind of easy introduction into this whole fantastical world. Which I mean, I saw the Lord of the Rings movies when I was much younger. And from what I remember, it's a very complicated world.
It is.
Very much like Game of Thrones, where it's like very complicated. So this was, I feel like, a very nice, easy introduction to something so much bigger.
Yeah.
And I mean, I can't wait to read the rest of the books. I'm very excited too.
I think that there's going to be a lot of promise for the Lord of the Rings trilogy.
We should probably do that on the show too.
I think we will get to that one book at a time.
Yeah, because I already did the Silmarillion with for a solo one.
I actually
which not many people like, by the way. Sorry about that, people.
You get a lot of views though.
Yeah, I was gonna say my boyfriend's a really big Lord of the Rings fan, so he insisted that I read the Silmarillion. Did I say that right?
I would say that you should read
I read that first.
the entirety of. I think you should read the 3 books in the Lord of the Rings trilogy, because Silmarillion is advanced.
Yeah, I was going to say, it seemed to me like more lore and, like you said, history, and it's like, okay, but I still don't understand how Middle-earth is set up, so...
Yeah, this explains, like, during the first
Tolkien
age.
has he really fleshed out Middle-earth.
Yeah, and I think that's something that always surprises me, too, because I feel like you see a lot about the Lord of the Rings fandom, like, online and stuff, and it's so in-depth and intense and detailed. And the people who like Lord of the Rings are Lord of the Rings people. Like, they are very devoted to J.R.R. Tolkien.
Like, a lot of people can actually recite the oath of, like, the rings, like, one ring to rule them all, one ring to find them all.
Yeah.
I only know one ring to find them all, one ring to rule them all, and the darkness bind them. But there's, like, another part that I don't know.
But I think that it's all kind of a jumping off point from this.
Yeah.
You know, like, this is, if you introduce a kid to the Hobbit, they're gonna probably grow up in, like, the Lord of the Rings.
Yeah. Because it's not that complicated as, like, the Lord of the Rings. But the complicated is, like, honestly, because he didn't think it was going to succeed, so he didn't think about creating this entire Earth. But then it succeeded, and then he created the Lord of the Rings, and he created all this lore and everything to it, and it's basically just become this huge fantasy universe that everyone seems to love.
Did he write this first?
He wrote that first. I think he wrote that when he was in, what war was he
I think
in?
it was 1936.
Okay.
Yes,
I
that's when it was
because
written.
when I was like trying to do a little bit of background research, I think it's a 1937.
They do make mention of the fact that it was inspired by the First World War.
I mean, if you think about it, and he is telling these stories to his kids around 1937 when, you know,
After he came home from the war?
Yeah, it might, you know, it kind of makes sense. It's a more kid-friendly way to go through essentially
Evil.
war stories,
Yeah.
things like that. Because
And essentially,
you know,
I don't think World War II happened yet, did it?
not yet. It was coming up, so you know you have
There were tensions going on in Europe.
Yeah, well, like, I think the Holocaust was still going on, but, like, there wasn't any, like, there was no exact
Not
war.
necessarily. I think it was, if anything, it was starting to, the restrictions were starting to be.
I think it was in 1933 they started doing that stuff.
That's when Hitler came into power, it was 1933.
Yeah, that's like what I'm saying, it was when it began to start.
Well, I mean, it's still, like, you know, this kid's probably hearing things at school or on the news because, you know, back then it wasn't, like, you know, all this kid-friendly Paw Patrol stuff, you know? Like, the kids had to witness what was happening in the real world, and so this was probably, you know, a nice way for him to, you know, make light out of it, explain it. I mean, if that's what he did, I think that's really great, too, you know, because sometimes, you know, you have to talk to kids about hard things in a way that they understand.
Anything else anybody wanted to bring up?
I like it.
Yeah.
I guess we can go to our final thoughts.
Yeah.
What were your thoughts about them making this book into a 3-part movie, and The Lord of the Rings into a 3-movie franchise?
Okay, so the 3 movies for The Lord of the Rings make sense because there's 3 books.
Yes.
So you can work with that. The Hobbit, on the other hand, was 1 book. Trying to split that into 3 movies. That's both a good and a bad thing. The good thing is that you're able to flesh out characters a bit more, add some new backstory. Like the Elven King in the movies, it's mentioned that he used to be a dragon hunter back when he was a teenager. Alright, and he has scars from that. But the thing is, he covers them up with magic. That was never explained in the books. Alright, like, mainly the characters don't really have many backstories or deep backstories in the book.
And that's not being true to the book.
True, But
unless
it
you're
makes
being true to Tolkien's history.
Well, the thing is, they still had like the same personalities they did in the book, but the thing is, they just made more interesting, more likable characters. However, the bad thing is that there's several storylines added that are not in the book at all, that are just there to flesh out time. Like, there's a forced romance between an elf and a dwarf that never happened in the book. A pale orc, who was killed, by the way, in the book. He's not actually in the book story, you know, so it's just like, they added all these storylines that just didn't need to be, and the thing is, like, you know, the parts where they could have been creative, they kind of just flopped at making them creative, like the whole Battle of the Five Armies. Bilbo's knocked out throughout most of it, because we're seeing it from his perspective, so we don't really know what happened during the war, so when they showed that in the movie, which, it's a visual medium, you can be creative with it. It's not really an interesting war to watch, honestly. So, making it into three movies did have some good points, and with the characters themselves, the story kind of suffered because of it.
I think if you were going to make The Hobbit 3 movies, I think the Lord of the Rings trilogy should have been 6.
It makes sense to split it up a little bit because there are very different storylines throughout this book, but I think that 2 movies would have sufficed, or maybe a miniseries.
I was going to say even just 1 movie, but I can't say because I haven't seen it. I only just read the book.
Yeah, each one's like 3 hours long, though.
I know, it's a lot.
Spreading out in 3 movies, the thing is, yeah, you're able to add in all the storylines and probably do them properly,
But you're
but
stretching your material a little thin.
yeah, and the thing is, by adding in more storylines, now you're just creating more complications for yourself.
Yeah.
You already have so many things with the Dwarves, Smog, and what the other creatures in Middle-earth are doing, you know? So the thing is, we don't need these other storylines added in that don't really need to be there.
Right.
It just kind of sounds like, and again, I haven't seen it, so this is just purely based on what you guys have been saying, but it kind of sounds like they're adding extra to make it longer to make them.
Yes, it's a
It's
box office strategy. And then they added different, I mean, they brought in Orlando Bloom to play Legolas, and...
Which, like, I'll never say no to Orlando Bloom.
Yeah, I
It
was
can
gonna
be in
say.
anything.
Nice. Then
Forever.
there was a female counterpart.
Yeah, played by Evangeline Lilly. I don't remember her name though. I think she's the one that had the like romance
Yes.
subplot with the one dwarf.
Yeah.
But like this book is completely whole without any romance.
Yeah.
Like
This
there's
book
zero.
really has there's barely any female...
Yeah, which
yeah,
like
sense.
appearances.
Yeah.
Tolkien never really broke female characters, so like,
No.
the thing is, like, she didn't even exist in the book.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, we don't really know. Many of the Dwarves don't even have names. Like, Legolas could have actually been there.
He was probably alive at the time.
Yeah, well, he's
But-
like 400 years old, and like,
Yeah,
I think
I would
Fellowship,
think 'cause-
so things, they mentioned all the woodland dwarves were there, so...
Because
Elves, sorry.
Gandalf was meeting with the elves, but it was outside of the story. It wasn't part of the story. I watched the first 2 movies, and the second one, Demolition of Smog, was actually, that's the last time I went to the movie theater to watch a movie.
Oh,
You know, he was voiced by
Oh,
Benedict Cumberbatch?
Yeah.
I know he was him.
So good. Like, watch them anyway. They're
Yeah,
so
oh, I will.
entertaining.
I think the Lord of the Rings trilogy was, I think the movies there were stronger.
Definitely.
Yeah,
And-
they're real good.
Yeah. My favorite thing that they added was when Gimli thought that he could destroy the ring with his axe.
Oh, yeah, it didn't work.
Nah, yeah, it didn't work. That was the best part of that movie. How would we rate this? 0 to 5 stars, half stars permitted. Dan?
I'd probably say 4. I like it, and the thing is, I'm a huge Tolkien fan, but the thing is, compared to Lord of the Rings, it is very simplistic. I enjoy that, but it's still an enjoyable read. Don't let simplicity, ruin it for you.
I was actually going to sing kind of the same thing. I'm going to give it a 4. I really enjoyed it. I think it's a great book, and as I mentioned before, it's such a complicated world, and having not read the other books and having not seen the movies in such a long time, I know it's a complicated world. And this is just a nice kind of slide into it, whether he intentionally did that because he knew it would be successful or he didn't because he didn't think it would be successful, whatever. It's a great story. I think a 4 is very, a good rating for the book.
I agree. I think I'm going to give it a 4 as well. I think it's a nice, easy read, still entertaining, and it's not as dry or plot-heavy as The Lord of the Rings.
I would give it, as a book, I'd give it 3.5. With the knowledge that Tolkien wrote this as a bedtime story for his kids, that I would be willing to bump up to a 4. But
I think that's such a great
Yeah,
little...
but I think
Yeah,
that
have no idea.
I see much more promise with the Lord of the Rings trilogy. if you're interested in checking out The Hobbit, here is my copy.
I love that we all have different copies.
Yeah, I was just thinking,
I
like,
have the invisible
he has
copy.
the invisible
I bought a box set.
It's wearing the ring.
Yeah.
I bought a box
so
set
cool.
from Barrier Island Books and Art in Stone Harbor. I was struck kind of a friendship with the owner because he started his own YouTube channel. The name of the channel is Barrier Island Books and Art. The name of his segments is Bayside Book Chats. I really enjoyed watching them. He does something similar to what I did back in April and May, where I talked about thoughts from my library. I went to his store before that and did a haul, and that's how he discovered me.
Yeah, I got mine from Blue Plate Books down in Winchester, Virginia, my new used bookstore. Give a little shout out there.
Ready?
Smog.
And where's yours from?
It's probably from Barnes & Noble.
Old reliable.
I did some book shopping there online in the past few months.
Me too.
I'm just saying, if you
reliable.
can't find something you need at a used bookstore,
It's
Barnes &
probably
Noble
at Barnes & Noble.
pretty much probably
Yeah.
has it. That or Amazon.
Yeah, that's if you want to make a deal with, who.
Yeah.
But thank you for tuning into this video. I hope you check out some more videos and discussions from our channel. And be sure to join us next time. For now, keep reading.
Hi everybody, this is Jesi from Literary Gladiators. Join us next time when we go over the Stephen King poll, or book poll that we did, It. Join Dan, Josh, Kaila, and I for a fabulous discussion where we cover just about everything this book has to offer. Don't forget to check us out on Patreon and support us to do bigger and better things and keep reading.